Okay.
Welcome Wargamers, this is Doug with 2 Plus Tough, and today we are tackling another major lore character, Archaon, the Everchosen himself. Now before I begin, if you have a lore question about Age of Sigmar or even 40k, go ahead, click subscribe, leave it in the comments down below. I read every single one of your comments and I use many of them as inspiration for future videos, giving you the credit when I can. As is probably obvious, today's requested video is about Archaon, the Everchosen himself. So without further ado, let's dig in. With the other main characters that have had kind of profiles in the old world, meaning Warhammer Fantasy Battles, what I've been doing is going back and learning about what the old lore and stuff like that was back then. I share it with you with the understanding that it may not be accurate anymore. Games Workshop hasn't really nullified any of it. They just kind of said, oh, it's a myth, right? So a kind of way of saying not canceling the old lore, but kind of moving beyond it. But I love to dig that stuff up. It's incredibly interesting. Also understand that there are a ton of books about these things, so the kind of prehistory, meaning in Warhammer Fantasy Battles, old lore, that I give to you is very abbreviated. I don't go into immense amounts of detail because one, it could get retconned, and two, I don't want to get you a surface level understanding of the character. So Archaon is actually one of the more recent additions to the Age of Sigmar universe in terms of literally how old somebody is. I think Nagash is probably, well, the Chaos Gods are the oldest, but Nagash is up there. After him is Sigmar, and then I know for a fact that Archaon comes after Sigmar, so he's actually one of the main characters. Now, while the Empire was developing, as we talked about with the Sigmar lore, which if you haven't listened to, you really should stop and go listen to that first. The Empire is developing, and to the north of them are these kind of Viking-esque tribes of people who worship various chaos deities in different forms. One of them was a prophet, and he had this incredible prophecy, and it was something like this: when the North and the South meet together, there the Everchosen will be. What that really means to us, like I said, abbreviated history. One of the clans of these savages came from the North, conquered one in the South, basically pillaging, raped a woman, and then that spawn of that, relationship basically became a young man named Deirdrick Kastner. And growing up, his mother remarried to another man. At some point, his mom dies. His now stepfather doesn't want him in the house. He's kind of, he's not his child, has no obligations to raise him, kicks him out. And so there's this orphan, gets taken into a Sigmar Templar order to kind of be raised. They didn't know what else to do with him. It's more of like an orphanage type thing. They were raising him almost like squires used to be for knights and things like that. It was a Sigmarite priesthood called the Order of the Twin-Tailed Orb. Now from that point, little Deirdrick grows into be a crazy awesome Templar for Sigmar. He is a devoted man. He's going out kicking face, conquering, doing whatever he can. Keep in mind, at this point, they hadn't really told him much about who he is, his origin story, as far as like his lineage. A lot of the lore from Warhammer Fantasy Battles is based upon real life stuff where lineage really matters, like it all really mattered in medieval times and things like that. And they shielded him from that kind of pain, and they gave him a new identity as a paladin, as a Templar, as all these things to go out and fight for Sigmar, and he was really stinking good at it. Now, at some point, he learns the truth. He learns that, one, he comes from this conglomeration of savages that he has since been hunting. Templars of Sigmar have been going out and fighting those kind of chaos Viking tribes. So he's been killing his own blood kin, okay, which is devastating to hear. But then also learning about how, you came to be. You're a child of rape and conquering and things like that. This idea of identity, it kind of messes with him. He is absolutely broken by this news. And as I think is fair, it really impacts his faith. He raises all kinds of questions. Like I said, identity is based a lot in your heritage and lineage and bloodline. So am I supposed to be one of these Viking savage chaos guys that I'm trying to kill right now? What does that mean for me in my life? Is that why my stepfather didn't want me? And all these kind of various doubts, insecurities, things like that flood in. He finds himself one night praying before a giant golden statue of Sigmar. And as he spends pretty much the entire night praying, it occurs to him finally after all this time, Sigmar's not going to answer me. His faith is broken. He renounces his faith in Sigmar, while at the same time, this is really important, keeping his animosity towards the Chaos tribe followers that he had before. So what he did is he put himself in a third position rather than being a Chaos guy or being a Sigmar guy. He decided, I hate both of them, I'm my own man. So now you have this one-man wrecking crew with a personal vendetta against the state-established church as well as the religion of his fathers and forefathers, bloodline-wise, the tribes of people he's been trying to kill as a Templar. So what do you do at that point? Well, you make yourself great. He goes on this massive quest. We know that it took at least 100 years, so there's some unnatural thing keeping him alive, where he goes around and collects the most powerful artifacts in the mortal realm. Sorry, in the old world. We're not the mortal realms yet. And goes through, and here's how the evolution of Archaon's army, okay? He walks up to a tribe of people, finds the chieftain, kills him, right? Primitive cultures, might makes right, so now he's in charge of that tribe. He leads the tribe, they go to the next place, he kills the leader, he absorbs them. I mean, he just kind of grows and grows and grows. This whole time he's moving this kind of ever-growing mass of people towards the artifacts that he needs. Now, interesting to note that the artifacts that he's hunting are actually the ones that you see on his war scroll in the game now. We're going to talk about those a little bit towards the end when we move into the facts thing. Right now we're just sticking to the storytelling. Of course, as he's growing and dominating these various tribes, the 4 Chaos Gods are looking upon him saying, I don't like this guy. There's no reason he should be fighting us. So Nurgle sends his band of, Warriors of Chaos of Nurgle after him, and he conquers them too. What's interesting about Archaon, though, and this is what sets him so far apart, it's going to matter a lot later on. Normally, when say you had 2 Chaos warbands, right? One's for Khorne, one's for Nurgle. They fight each other. They'll wipe each other out to a man, okay? Why? Because followers of my enemy cannot exist. But Archaon's different, actually. He'll fight the Nurgle warband and subdue them, right, to a point where they start to break, and then absorb their army. He's not out to kill every single person. The point is he has to grow, with the caveat that you have to follow him more than you follow the Chaos God. And this is where things get interesting, because that's why you have Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh, and then unaligned Chaos people all fighting for Archaon. He balances them all equally, because as the Everchosen, which is just kind of a title, it doesn't have any real true significance really. As a title, that's what his goal is to do. He is the guy who was chosen by all the gods. The fact that you can worship whatever deity you want, I don't care, but you need to work for me. That's the only option that you have right now. Makes him different than the other, say, Chaos warlords going around for different Chaos gods. And of course, the various Chaos gods don't like the fact that their followers are working for somebody else. They send a myriad of demons and warlords and all kinds of things to try and kill Archaon. Every single time he wins, he outsmarts them, he outfights them, whatever it is. And everything they seem to throw at him just seems to make him so much stronger. And in that regard, that's what it means to be the Everchosen. He's blessed by every single Chaos God, but he doesn't answer to a single one of them. He's a very prolific and intelligent general, a mover of troops. He has the cunningness and sneakiness. He can move bodies around to where they need to be. He can position things like politicking type stuff. He's an incredibly sharp and intelligent guy. He has the bloodthirstiness and ambition of Khorne, and his singular purpose is to ascend to godhood himself. He wants to be his own thing. And really, that's kind of how he always was in the old world. He was instrumental in the events of the end times. Essentially, what happened was, instead of letting Chaos control the entire world, and instead of letting Sigmar regain control and letting him, a new brand of order and everything wash over the land, he nuked it. It's like the third option, right? I could let either side of my enemies, because remember, he hates them both, take control, or I can take control and just nuke the entire thing and nobody gets to play with the toys, right? That's what essentially the end times was. He nuked the dang thing. Which brings us to where we are now in Age of Sigmar. He owns a small slice of the realm of chaos called the Varanspire. This is a incredibly cool looking castle. Like I said, it's his own plot of land. He has this immaculate throne of all the things that he's conquered and beaten, but he has yet to sit upon it. I think the idea being he gets to sit on the throne when he finally has reached his goal of ascension. He's the commander of nearly all non-demonic forces of chaos in the mortal realms. Some are still definitely devoted to their god, meaning there are some absolutely devoted chaos people who are all about Nurgle or whatever, but they will answer his call. There's actually a book series called The Call of Archaon, where it has different various warlords who are all doing their own thing for their god, but with the second they hear Archaon call for him, they answer. He was absolutely instrumental in the Age of Chaos for letting actually the forces of chaos in. He was one of the ones who kind of treated with Nagash, as far as we understand. When the door busts open and chaos comes into the mortal realms, he is at the absolute forefront making that thing happen. Right? He was the foot who sits inside the doorway so the good guys can't close it, and everything just went to hell from there. At one point, he struck down Nagash in the realm of death, leaving him like severely crippled to the point where he had to heal for a long time. Didn't kill him, obviously, but really did a major blow. And above all, he really wants to fight his one equal rival, and that is Sigmar himself. So that kind of brings us from, a story perspective where we are now. It's very current. He has his own battle tome that gives a lot of detail about him. But I want to move into kind of some more facts about him, and one of them really is the artifacts that he carries. These are very prominent on his war scroll. Everything has a named, weapon, armor, things like that. One is the Crown of Domination. This is basically, you put a crown on top of your head and it allows you to control chaos forces. It's incredible. It's probably very instrumental to him being able to round up more and more chaos warbands so he can kind of grow his power base. So it's a very fascinating thing where you can put on this crown and then you have instant control over some factions. There's a gem called the Eye of Sheeran, and it gives the bearer a small amount of foresight, really adding to his ability to kind of be a better general and things like that, and outsmart the enemy and even the gods themselves. The gem itself he actually puts inside the crown, which is kind of awesome. He kind of melds magical artifacts together. What he wears to battle is called the Armor of Morcar. There's not much, as far as I know, built around this thing other than it's just incredibly powerful. I know it bounces back damage to the enemy. There's not a huge mythos behind it, but it is supposed to be really BA. And the last thing, which is, artifact in quotations, you may have noticed it on his model, is called Dorgar. Okay, Dorgar is the thing that he's writing. Okay, it is a creature without a true form. In the old world, it was a horse. The idea being it's some kind of chaos entity that when you kill something, whatever it killed becomes a part of it, and it can kind of shift and take forms and things like that. Well, as I said before, a bunch of the Chaos Gods were all sending demons and such to assassinate him. He would beat the demon and then feed the carcass to Dorgar, who would then absorb it. And that's why when we look at Dorgar today, it has the Bloodthirster head, it has the Greater Demon of Nurgle head, it has the Tzeentchian head. No Slanesh one, that's important to point out. But it is fascinating that he has this mount that just keeps getting more and more powerful the more things it absorbs, and it takes their form. So now I'll move into his forces, his actual on the ground boots presence. Well, like I said earlier, he rules just about all of the mortal chaos warbands. They all owe some allegiance to him. If not, they all certainly know him and will honor him if he requests something. But he is the direct commander of many forces. His absolute chief followers are called the Varangard. These are some spectacular models from GW. They are basically, each one of them could be a massive, powerful warlord in their own right, but they are so devoted to Archaon and his pursuit of being a chaos god that they work specifically for him, unaligned to demons and things like that. So they are a force unto themselves, but they act as sort of like his lieutenants. There's a couple dozen of them. Whenever they go, they carry the authority of Archaon, so they can come and command the forces in different fronts. And that's kind of how he spreads his power base. Another thing that's very prominent in his forces is the Gaunt Summoners. Now, there's kind of a cool story here where there was a Tower of Tzeentch, and he kept throwing forces at it to try and capture and enslave some of these Gaunt Summoners. But every time they did, they hit like a magic barrier, or there'd be some lightning, whatever like that. All his forces kept dying. And the Gaunt Summoners were all haughty, thinking they were winning and killing people. What happened was, Archaon was sitting up on a ledge watching this happen, and every single time they repelled his enemy, or his forces, he learned more about how the Gaunt Summoners work and things like that. He's so conniving and so cunning. Basically what he did, he set a trap for them to learn their names. Now, apparently when you learn a Gaunt Summoner's name, you can create a spell that binds them to you. So in this respect, by throwing all these guys to their deaths, he learned the Gaunt Summoners' names, imprisoned them, and so now he has his own small little cohort of Gaunt Summoners at his disposal. One of the things that the Battletome points out that I thought was incredibly cool is that he actually uses the Gaunt Summoners to send messages across the realms. So by doing this and having his lieutenants all over the place, he has actually created a vast communications network so that one man is the general, through instant communication across 8 mortal realms. Well, 7 because Azir's still closed off functionally, attacking at all different fronts and things like that. What's interesting is that there's nothing like that described for the good guys. We don't know of anything like that, so I think that's why Archaon has such a presence in the stories. It always seems like he shows up at the right time, destroys everything, and then leaves. And that's exactly what he does. But when you think about how much intelligence is going behind this, just the sheer logistics of conquering this much land, it makes it seem a lot more reasonable. And the last little thing here as far as his forces is concerned, is that he really goes anywhere. He doesn't have a particular warband. Like, Korgus Cole is kind of assigned to his warband, whatever. But Archaon doesn't. He operates very independently. He has this vast network set up so that he himself, being the powerhouse that he is, can really jump around each place and lend support where it needs to be, which is actually a very good strategy. So he kind of shows up to any forces. Now what this means for you in army building is that there's no chaos force that you can build that he doesn't really slide into. Maybe an all demons army would be kind of weird, narratively speaking. But functionally, he can really go wherever he wants. He works with everyone against pretty much everyone else. So now that we're done talking about the kind of facts behind Archaon, let's talk about why he's cool. What has he done to drive events in the Age of Sigmar? Well, darn near all of them. This guy is so cool. He blatantly rejects the Chaos Gods, but accepts their blessings, right? Yeah, you can take that. I'll take that from you. Yeah, absolutely. And then he forms this incredible beast, Dorgar, out of this, destroyed greater demons. He takes all the power from them. He commands a lot of their mortal troops. It's incredible how much power he has able to kind of politic and get through sheer veracity. And keep in mind, in doing that, he's constantly juggling favor between the gods. He can't let any one of them think that he is theirs, meaning he can't ignore Khorne for too long, because then the enemies of Khorne will be like, oh, Archaon's for us, he's kind of against Khorne. No, he has to do some things for Khorne, but not too much. So it's kind of this balancing act 4 ways for all the different chaos gods. It lends itself to thinking that he is incredibly intelligent and conniving. His story with Sigmar is incredibly compelling, where he was a devotee to this guy, but got so burned out on feeling neglected and all the things that people often report feeling when it comes to certain low points in their religious experience. But to take that to the extreme, right? To not only reject your faith, but then also push back on it so hard, become its mortal enemy, make friends with the other enemy, get all their gifts, and then try to hunt him down, right? There's this idea of both him and Sigmar were both just men who ascended to something higher, right? This god and demigod status. What's interesting is that Sigmar literally is the god king of lightning and heavens with that. Archaon doesn't have a very specific power, he's not the god of blank. But they're equals in that sense, that he has driven himself so far that he has become equal with a god. And yet, somehow, I honestly think that he is stronger than the Chaos Gods. Now, here's what I mean. Chaos itself does not have a physical form. A barrier will open and a bunch of bloodletters will come out, but Khorne himself does not step onto the battlefield, okay? If things kind of calm down, there's no more fighting going on, the bloodletters dissipate. Why? Because they thrive, they exist on that energy of chaos. Archaon is different from them because 1, unlike Khorne, he can walk on the battlefield. 2, his forces won't dissipate when things settle down. They just get a chance to rest, and then they go out and they fight something else. So being able to be a mortal sets him apart from the other chaos gods. He wields all their power, but he gets to walk on the ground. The books do a great job of making him seem just so imposing and cunning and just evil. He's just a nasty, nasty dude. What's cool is that they make a distinction between him and, say, Korgus Cole, someone who's all about Khorne versus someone who's just all about evil, or just all about themselves, really. He feels like a different kind of character. He feels scarier and bigger, just bigger than anything else. And really, he does drive major, lore-changing events in this setting. Between his personal fight with Sigmar that led to him throwing the hammer, He is the one who tricked Sigmar into throwing Galmaraz, and so that's what made Sigmar retreat and lock up Azir, and that's what made the Age of Chaos so successful, wildly successful. He was at the Battle of Allgates, where basically a major blow is struck to the good guys because he who controls the Allgates can pretty much go anywhere in the mortal realms. So he kind of captured that strategic point and made it his own. And lastly, he was a major force that struck down Nagash, the god of death. So all of these things are just major turning points in the story. He has been there for every single one of them and continues to be a major factor in stories going forward. He is the pinnacle of awesomeness in terms of making your own destiny and things like that. So guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this story talking about Archaon a little bit. If you have a lore question that you would like answered, go ahead, click subscribe, leave it in the comments down below. I read every single comment. I try to respond to as many as possible, but there's a lot of you and only one of me. I really appreciate the time we had together. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.